Investigators say an inmate managed to get a gun inside Smith State Prison and then killed the kitchen staffer before turning the gun on himself. Tonight, investigators say they believe the inmate and victim had a relationship.
On the early morning of June 16, 2024, inside the secure walls of Smith State Prison in Glenville, Georgia, a tragedy unfolded that no one saw coming. 24-year-old Arians Grace had just clocked in for her shift, smiling, focused, and carrying a secret she thought no one would ever discover. She wasn't just a prison worker. She was in a relationship with an inmate, a convicted felon. Moments later, she was found shot dead in the prison kitchen. Officers rushed through the facility, but by the time they arrived at the crime scene, it was already too late. And what they found next turned a shocking crime into something far darker. Because right next to Arian's body was her boyfriend, still inside the prison, still in uniform, and somehow holding the gun that ended her life. As investigators scrambled to piece it all together, one question echoed through every hallway. Somehow, a convicted felon had gotten his hands on a gun inside a maximum security prison.
There is no way there should have been a handgun, an inmate with a handgun. And they're seeing all these things about my daughter. Do they even know? Y'all, nobody knows the real story because she's not here to tell it.
And beneath the surface of their forbidden relationship lay a darker motive, one that would ultimately lead him to murder the very woman who had risked everything to be with him. This is the life and death of Arians Grace. Growing up, 24-year-old Arians Grace spent much of her childhood in Statesboro, Georgia, born on September 21, 1999, to DeShonda Higgins Fox and Adrell Grace Sr. She grew into a joyful and vibrant young woman known for her radiant spirit. Friends and family remember Arians as someone who had a natural ability to bring light and happiness to everyone around her. She was a caring, hard-working woman with a heart of gold, always willing to lend a hand and offer compassion to those in need. Her warm smile and friendly demeanor left a lasting impression wherever she went. Her mother, DeShonda, often worried that Arians' kind heart would make her vulnerable in a world that didn't always reciprocate such genuine care.
And I used to always tell her, you can't let everybody get close to you because when they see that you have a kind heart and you will help anybody, they'll take advantage of that.
But Arians' nature remained steady, rooted in love, empathy, and an unwavering desire to do good. She was affectionately described as having a sweet spirit, the brightest smile, and could be goofy when she wanted to. Her ability to make people feel seen and valued made her deeply loved by all who knew her. Arians Grace stood out from an early age, driven by big dreams and an even bigger determination to succeed. Her goals were bold, fueled by a relentless drive that set her apart from her peers. Ambitious and focused, Arians approached every opportunity with purpose and passion. She graduated from Statesboro High School in 2018, leaving a lasting impression on classmates and teachers alike. As she pursued higher education, Arians balanced rigorous academics with a growing passion for helping others. During her college years, she immersed herself in learning and personal growth, always envisioning a future where she could not only succeed, but uplift those around her. Arians had a heartfelt desire to build a better life, not just for herself, but for everyone around her. That drive was most evident in the way she loved and cared for her two children, 4-year-old daughter Kinsley Grace and 1-year-old son Aislinn Williams. They were her everything. Every decision she made was guided by the future she dreamed of for them. She wanted her children to grow up in a home filled with love, opportunity, and stability. something she was determined to provide, no matter the challenges. It was clear that everything in her life revolved around giving them the best possible future. She was diligently saving money to attend nursing school, a clear reflection of her drive and dedication to help others. Her plans for the future focused not only on personal achievement, but also on making a lasting difference in the lives of others. That selfless spirit, combined with her ambition, made her future feel limitless. It was that same compassion that led her to her next role. In January 2024, Arians began working at Aramark Food Service in Statesboro, Georgia. Aramark, a Pennsylvania-based company, provides food and commissary services to justice-impacted individuals, correctional officers, staff, and facility visitors across various state and county institutions. Arians was a recent hire who took pride in her role, driven by a deep desire to help others in any way she could. Her position required her to work closely with the Georgia Department of Corrections, specifically at Smith State Prison in Glenville, Georgia, located roughly an hour and 15 minutes west of Savannah, near the Atlantic waterways. Opened in 1993, Smith State Prison houses up to 1,500 inmates at a close security level. While not quite a maximum security facility, close security prisons still hold some of the most dangerous offenders in the country. Inmates typically have more time outside their cells compared to those in maximum security facilities, but the environment remains highly restrictive. As with most correctional institutions, strict rules are enforced: no contraband, no cell phones, no drugs, no alcohol, and no homemade weapons. All staff and visitors undergo extensive security checks to prevent smuggling. Despite these measures, illicit items still manage to find their way inside, often with the help of compromised staff or visitors. Arians understood the risks of working in such a high-pressure environment, but her commitment to helping others and providing for her family gave her the strength to show up every day. But it was that same vibrant energy and open heart that led her into a relationship with a man who would change her life in ways she never could have anticipated. While working at Smith State Prison, Arians met 34-year-old inmate Jadricus Cartez Hart.
Love me, but I ain't have my swagger right, them hoes ain't fuck me. I be on some feet to foul shit. I know my mom proud of me. I know they cook real good. I just can't put down this shit. I do it real big, but they don't.
Known to most as Jay, for many inmates in prison, having a pen pal or someone to connect with on the outside, whether through letters, phone calls, or occasional visits, can provide a sense of peace and purpose. Some inmates even develop friendships with prison staff, and that seemed to be the case with Jay and Arians. Their connection began with casual conversations and gradually deepened into something more personal. Jay had been in prison since June 2013. He was convicted in the death of 46-year-old Henry Jr. Mathis in Villa Rica, Georgia. The incident occurred on Memorial Day that year during a verbal altercation on the 300 block of Thomas Dorsey Drive. According to investigators, Jay retrieved a gun from a vehicle driven by another man and shot Henry multiple times before fleeing the scene. Henry was still alive when officers arrived, and he was transported to Tanner Hospital, where he later died from his injuries. Jay was sentenced to 20 years for voluntary manslaughter with a maximum release date set for June 2043. Despite the conviction, Jay's influence didn't end there. Despite being locked up, Jay still found a way to maintain a strong presence on social media through access to a contraband phone. He posted videos on social media where he appeared inside his cell, confidently smoking, eating outside food, and sharing glimpses of his daily life.
Hey, my grandbaby.
What going on, Grandma?
Look, I need you to come over here and cut grandmama. Baby. Lord, I can't never get this thing to work right. See?
He expressed pride in being able to FaceTime his children and claimed that, despite being behind bars, he was committed to being a present and loving father. Jay frequently posted about personal growth and how his time in prison had changed him. To Arians, Jay's vulnerability and openness may have felt genuine. Known for her kind and empathetic nature, it wouldn't have been surprising if she felt a sense of purpose in offering him support. Over time, their relationship grew stronger, and she became loyal to him. Jay, in turn, appeared excited and proud to have someone like Ariane in his life, even publicly acknowledging her in his online posts. But that relationship would end in a horrific tragedy.
A disturbing story out of Georgia. Officials say an inmate used a gun to kill a kitchen worker at a prison before fatally shooting himself. This happened around 4:30 yesterday morning at the Smith State Prison in Glenville, Georgia. That's about an hour from Savannah. The Georgia Department of Corrections issued a statement saying Jay Drake's Hart fatally 24-year-old Ariane Grace, a food service worker in the prison's kitchen. Officials say Grace had worked at the prison since January. The agency is investigating but did not say how the inmate got access to a gun. This is the second murder of a staff member at Smith State Prison.
In the early hours of June 16, 2024, Ariane reported to work at Smith State Prison as she always did. That morning, Jay, who had been assigned to kitchen duty, had made a chilling request. He asked that he and Ariane be left alone in the kitchen. A witness later revealed this unsettling detail. Moments later, that request turned deadly. Around 4:30 a.m., once the other inmates had cleared the room, Jay then pulled out a contraband handgun and without warning, he shot Ariane in the head, causing her to collapse off the countertop. The tragedy didn't end there. He then fired a second shot before turning the gun on himself in an apparent murder-suicide. At the time of the shooting, Smith State Prison was placed on complete lockdown. When authorities finally reached the scene, it was already too late. Tragically, 24-year-old Ariane Shavea Grace had passed away. 34-year-old Jay Drake's Hart, however, was still alive. He was rushed to a nearby hospital, but despite emergency medical efforts, he succumbed to his injuries shortly after. Authorities later confirmed that Hart had left behind a letter, suggesting that at least some part of the incident had been premeditated. The aftermath of the incident was even more shocking. DeShonda Hagens, Ariane's mother, or any of her family members were not informed of her daughter until 7 hours later. She had received a call not from prison officials, but through a contraband cell phone call made by another inmate 7 hours before the Georgia Department of Corrections officially notified the family.
At 7, we're learning the family of the woman killed in a suicide at Smith State Prison this week learned about her death from an inmate before hearing from the Georgia Department of Corrections. The GDC says an inmate used a contraband cell phone to call a family member of Ariane Grace shortly after she was killed. You may remember authorities say inmate Jay Drake's Hart and killed Grace before turning the gun on himself. The GDC says the family arrived at Smith State Prison before they could even contact them. A spokesperson said, quote, the family was escorted to a private area of the facility where they were on scene for approximately 7 hours and were continually updated as investigators and facility staff were able to determine other details.
The call was a devastating and chaotic way to receive such life-shattering news. Grief-stricken and desperate for answers, DeShonda and her family rushed to the prison. There, they were made to wait for hours as investigators tried to piece together the events that had unfolded. The lack of communication and transparency only deepened their anguish. In the aftermath, the Georgia Department of Corrections issued a statement confirming the presence of a contraband phone and acknowledged the delay in notifying the family. They stated that the investigation was still in its early stages at the time of the family's arrival and that they were working to determine all the facts. The GDC also noted that their Director of Professional Standards was providing real-time updates to the family as more information became available. The incident exposed alarming gaps in prison security. The crime scene raised serious concerns about the security and safety protocols at Smith State Prison. How inmate Hart was able to obtain a firearm remains a critical point of investigation. Experts have speculated that the weapon may have been smuggled in through various channels, possibly delivered by drone or brought in through the facility's back gate, which was reportedly lacking essential security measures, such as metal detectors. Investigators later discovered a suicide note left behind by Hart, though the contents of the letter have not been made public.
Just a little while ago, a spokesperson for the prisons told us they believe Hart and Grace had a romantic relationships. They say he did leave behind a suicide note, but there is still no clear answer about how that gun got into a Supermax facility at this point.
The aftermath of the incident was chaotic and emotionally devastating, particularly for Ariane's family, who were left reeling with unanswered questions. This tragedy has amplified long-standing concerns about the management and oversight within Georgia's prison system. The Georgia Department of Corrections has come under heavy scrutiny for failing to effectively curb the presence of contraband, despite frequent claims of conducting routine shakedowns and enforcing strict security measures. In 2023 alone, Smith State Prison reported the confiscation of 1,509 weapons, 694 cell phones, 854 chargers, and significant quantities of drugs and tobacco. The fact that a firearm was still able to make its way inside the facility, resulting in such a horrific loss, has sparked renewed outrage and demands for reform. Arian's mother, DeShonda Higgins, has been outspoken in her belief that the prison system failed her daughter. She argues that if proper security protocols had been enforced, Jadrika's Hart would never have had access to a firearm, and her daughter would still be alive.
I'm really in disbelief of the fact that it was even a firearm in the facility.
24-year-old Arian Grace's family started getting messages on Facebook early Sunday morning that something was terribly wrong at her job at Smith State Prison.
Inmates were going through social media, looking on her social media to find people related to her.
And that's how DeShonda Higgins found out about her daughter's murder. The prison says inmate Jadrika's Hart shot Grace than himself. She was working for the food company Aramark in the kitchen there. Prison officials said Monday they believe Grace and Hart had a personal relationship, but her mom sees that as a deflection.
What does that have to do with an inmate having a gun to kill my child?
And Higgins wants the Department of Corrections to focus on that, how the gun got into a maximum security prison.
Higgins has since called for stricter regulations, improved staff training, and more consistent enforcement of existing policies to prevent such tragedies from happening again. The investigation into the incident remains ongoing. As part of their inquiry, authorities have reportedly confirmed that Arian and Hart were involved in a personal relationship. However, no one knows for certain what led to the fatal shooting of the woman he had been seeing. The Georgia Department of Corrections, along with other agencies, continues to investigate how Hart acquired the weapon and whether any prison staff or inmates were involved in smuggling it into the facility. The case has sparked widespread public outcry and media scrutiny, intensifying demands for accountability, transparency, and sweeping reforms within the prison system. This wasn't the first time tragedy struck within the walls of Smith State Prison. In October, 42-year-old correctional officer Robert Clark was killed by an inmate using a homemade weapon. The inmate, who was already serving a sentence for murder, attacked Clark from behind, resulting in Clark's death.
There is an investigation into the death of a Georgia correctional officer. This happened at Smith State Prison, which is in Tattnall County. That's in rural southeast Georgia. Authorities say correctional officer Robert Clark was escorting two inmates when one assaulted him from behind with a homemade weapon. The other inmate stepped in to help the officer. That's when he was also hit. The two were taken to the hospital where Officer Clark later died.
Incidents like these highlight the ongoing dangers correctional staff face in high-risk facilities. Smith State Prison, designed to house inmates considered violent or high escape risks, has long struggled with internal issues, ranging from inmate violence to the infiltration of contraband. The fatal shooting of Arian Grace has only deepened concerns about the prison's ability to maintain safety for both staff and inmates. Friends and family continue to pay tribute to Arian Grace, describing her as kind, pure-hearted, and full of love. The shock surrounding her death remains heavy. Many struggle to comprehend how a firearm could have made its way into a prison, especially into the hands of someone serving time for voluntary manslaughter. Amidst the grief, calls for accountability and change grew louder. In the wake of this tragedy, Arian has been remembered as a loving mother, a hardworking employee, and a gentle soul whose life was cut far too short. Her family and friends are not only mourning her loss, but also demanding justice. They are calling for urgent reforms to improve the safety and accountability within correctional facilities, to ensure that no other family experiences the same pain. To honor her memory, a memorial balloon release was held on June 28, 2024, at Matthew H. Lovett and Sons Funeral Home. The event began at 7:30 p.m. with white and purple balloons colors chosen to represent peace and remembrance, released in her name. The heartbreaking death of 24-year-old Arians Life is a sobering reminder of the dangers that can arise even in places designed to protect society and the urgent need for vigilance and reform in the prison system. Let me know what you think in the comments section below.